What up, y'all? Smalls here. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm coming to you from Chumash and Tongva land down here in Southern California. I just really want to welcome you to Black and Sikh. You know, we're here to explore the intersection of culture and faith while we center and shine a spotlight on those living, surviving, and thriving at the intersection of Black and Sikh. And I'm lucky because there's nobody else I'd rather be taking this journey with and doing this exploring with than my man Soorma, who I'm gonna let introduce himself.
All right, what up, y'all? Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. My name is Soorma Singh, Soorma Singh. My pronouns are he, him, and I'm coming to you from Karankawa land, otherwise known as Galveston, Texas. And I'm so excited to be here with Smalls. And yeah, we've been working on this a while, and I'm just ready to dive in. So let's get to it.
This has been like over 2 years in the making, right? Like,
Right,
you know,
right.
we talked about this over 2 years ago, and I just knew that if we were gonna do it, I really wanted to do it right. And so, you know, life be lifing. You know, we out here trying to survive adulthood. So we're finally here. But look, we're not gonna speak too long. We're gonna jump straight into it. If you want to know more about Black and Sikh, just stay tuned to the end, or jump straight to this time. We'll have it on the screen. But until then, let's just get straight into it. All right. So I got a question for you, Sorma. I got a question.
hmm
Well, first of all, how long have you been sick?
I have been sick. Let's see, July 1st, 12:15 a.m. 2015. So it's over 8 years now, I believe.
That part. All right. So look, what's one of the most common things that we hear from other Sikhs anytime that we discuss or even mention our race or our blackness along with our identity or our self-disclosure as a Sikh. Anytime you mention race, what's the one thing that you hear from most other Sikhs?
I don't see color. I just see sick. I just see it's crazy. It's bullcrap.
They just have to let us know they do not see color. They don't see our race. Why are we mentioning it? Why are we bringing it up? I don't understand. I even had somebody go so far as to scold somebody else on my behalf for saying black and being like, "Don't say that." Like the word black, identifying somebody as black in and of itself was insulting to them.
Right, right. I've had that happen to me too, where I go, oh, I'm a black Sikh, very proud to be black, and people literally go, "You're not black anymore. You're Punjabi now. You're Sikh now," and I'm just like, ugh, that is so cringy.
No, thank you. Yeah. So okay. So for the sake of not being around the bush, right? We're gonna cut straight to the chase. So now we know we hear people in general will say, I don't see color. And I will even admit, I once upon a time kind of used this language. I don't see color, right? I didn't know any better. Okay. We all have to start somewhere, right? But when we talk about Sikhs who come to us and they tell us they don't see color, or they tell us we don't need to be seeing color, or it's a problem that we are self-identifying as black, or we point out our blackness or even mention it, there's usually a particular type of Sikh who does that. For me, it's usually Punjabi Sikhs, right? Like,
Okay.
uh, I've had a couple of black Sikhs like say that to me, and they're sort of regurgitating or repeating what they've been told by other Sikhs. But for the most part, the people who say that to me are Punjabi Sikhs. We know for a fact that they see our color, right?
Right.
Like, we know that. So
Absolutely. Absolutely.
here's how we really know that not only do they see color, but they also look at us, treat us, see us differently because of that color. Because I think that's what they're really trying to say when they say, I don't see your color, right? Or I'm colorblind. They're trying to say, your race doesn't matter. Like, I will not treat you differently because of your race. That's me giving them the benefit of the doubt, right? Okay. But the fact that I went to a gurdwara in Hayward in the Bay Area, one of the most diverse places in the US. Now they're probably not used to seeing black people in their space, right? But okay. So I go in there and I'm alone. I've got on my turban. You know, I go, I do my thing. You do what you do at the Gurdwara. This is a pretty big one. It's a lot bigger than my like home one, right? But I would say the fact that the moment I walk into any Gurdwara that I've never been in and they've never seen me, the fact that everybody sort of turns and stares and then just keeps staring tells me that they see my color. They see a difference immediately, okay? And then it doesn't stop there, because at the Hayward Gurdwara, I was followed. And initially, I thought maybe they think I need help. Maybe they think I don't know what I'm doing. I'm lost. No, they were worried, I guess, that I was going to steal because he was trying to hide. So like he's following me and I kind of like turn back and I'm like, what, to speak. And he like turns his head and I'm like, what is happening here? And it finally like clicked. I was like, this is like I'm back in a retail store in a CVS or a Walgreens getting followed by employees. It's right back there. So whether their feelings about my presence is valid or not, the point is we do know that they see our color, they see our race, and good, bad, neutral, whatever, we are treated differently as a result.
I get that. I 100% understand that. I've had my own experiences too, with discrimination within the gurdwara, within Sikh spaces in general. The first time I went to the gurdwara, I was accompanied by my white friend, so there wasn't really much of an issue there. However, when I went to the gurdwara by myself for the first time, they apparently, I was unaware of it, but apparently I was told later on that people thought that I was there to steal. Granted that there was a white guy that came to the gurdwara the week before and stole from the Golak. They just thought that I was around too. But the difference between me and the white guy is that the white guy didn't look like a Sikh. I literally came with turban and beard and with a kurta and everything. So I had all the identifiers of a Sikh on me, and yet they still thought that I was there to steal. And another thing that I probably want to bring up is that a lot of people like to jump the gun and just assume that, oh, you guys are just playing the race card. I want to make it known that we are gaslit so much in our community with that we think about every other possible outcome of why we're being treated as such before we even go to the race card. We try to, make sense of it without pulling the race card. And then just the more we think about it, it just all leads down to one thing. Hey, you're not really doing anything out of the norm. You're just black. So, I mean, it happens all the time. I've actually been called the N-word at a Sikh camp before by a camper. So these things happen all the time, and it's really absurd to even make such a statement as I don't see color, because clearly you do. If you didn't, you wouldn't be treating me so different or so special.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. And we can talk about the different signifiers of Sikhi that we have on and whether or not we're read as Sikh, because I mean, you probably are more than me. That would be my guess, just because you've got the beard and you always rock the turban. I switched out my turban for something else. We'll talk about that later. But even when I have full turban on and I've got my kara and, plenty of Sikh signifiers, I'm not read as Sikh. People will ask me who gave that to me, if I know what it means, if my friend gave it to me, if my boyfriend tied my turban for me, like just all kind of like silly stuff, because they do see my race, they do see my color, and they just automatically assume that I'm not Sikh, which, to be honest, if you know anything about Sikhi and how sort of like insular it is, and like the fact that we don't proselytize, it is understandable why if you've never met a black Sikh, if you've only ever met or been around brown or Punjabi Sikhs, it makes sense to me, at least, why you might not initially assume that I am Sikh. However, once I say, no, I'm Sikh, why are you still so sure that I am not and could not possibly be Sikh? But anyways, these are just like some examples of how we know for a fact that we see color. So when I did the interview with Kat Black, right, you've seen that, that was some of the comments that I got. She asked me if I ever come into issues with cultural appropriation or things like that. Again, that's part of why I really wanted to start this project, because culture is such a fundamental part of who we are, especially when it comes to like Black Americans, because a lot of times people will swear that Black Americans do not have a culture, right? Because we were stripped from our connection to Africa, which is true for most of us who are at least descendants from enslaved people here in the US. But we have a culture. Like Black American is our culture. Little do they know, right? Like I might not say I might not be like a Nigerian American. I might not be like British or whatever, but like Black American is my culture. That I have a culture.
Absolutely. And the entire world, even the Punjabis, are literally taking inspiration from our culture. I don't know if you've seen Diljit Dosanjh lately, but Welcome to My Hood. Ain't no hoods in India. Ain't no hoods in India. So like, who are you getting all that from? I feel like it's because of racism and placing Black people on the lowest the lowest end of the pole, should I say. I feel like if you're not black, there's some entitlement to our culture that people feel, that people don't can just take our culture because it's pop culture and just not give us credit for it just because we're black, and they feel like some type of entitlement to it. And I've noticed that in not just the Sikh community or the Punjabi community, but all communities around the world. You got K-pop that obviously took inspiration from Black American music.
Yeah, for
You've
sure.
got so many other things from different cultures that take inspiration from Black music. Mikha Singh, Dalir Mehndi, all of these prominent, Punjabi singers are literally singing hip hop, and that's literally Black culture. But even then, the cultural appropriation comment really doesn't make sense to me, because how do you appropriate a culture, or how do you appropriate a religion?
Well, to be clear, that was my response. Like, I mean, not that exactly, but it was more of a question. She was, she asked if I had ever been accused of cultural appropriation, and I have not at least to my recollection. But I think that that's also because now I have heard like some Sikhs talk about cultural appropriation in terms of other people wearing turbans, which, when I saw it, it sort of seemed like a gotcha to Black people, like, because they feel like Black people are always complaining about cultural appropriation, right? And it's like, well, if that's cultural appropriation, then why isn't it cultural appropriation that this person is wearing a turban? And I'm like, because Sikhs don't own turbans. Sikhs were not the only or first people to wear turbans or
culturally
headwear or anything
significant
like
thing.
that. It's just fabric. Anyways, but so that we don't get too far off track, here's why we're really talking about this, because Sikhs seem to think that like Sikhs are an exception to the like effects of colonization and white supremacy and implicit bias, right? Just because Guru said equality. Social justice, equality, and really equity, those are not the words used, but really we're talking about equity here. But equality is a fundamental part of Sikhi. We know that. And so a lot of people, I feel like, based on what they're saying, based on the things that they've said when I've had these conversations, feel like because Guru said equality, because Guru has this demand for equality in Sikhi, once you become a Sikh, all things must be equal. And even if they aren't, you are supposed to act like they are, and I guess pretend like they are, or things are just magically supposed to actually be equal just because we're Sikh and Guru said it. But that's just not how it works, right? That's how it probably works for you, maybe like in your bubble, but that's not how it works for me. When I go places and I'm like the only Black person there in that space, and everybody's staring at me, or people have questions, or people don't believe that I'm Sikh, even though I say I am, and I'm wearing a kara and a turban or whatever, like my dastar, like, it is a reminder that you see my color, that and you see that I am different. And that alone changes my lived experience, right? It means I have a different lived experience than somebody who is brown, Punjabi, whatever, South Asian, and Sikh. And a lot of this, again, has to do with the moment we start releasing content, people start saying, why is this necessary? Why are you self-segregating? What is Black and Sikh? Why do you need to do this? Right? And so we're going to talk a little bit about that. And a large part of that is implicit bias. Now, implicit bias is a bias that occurs automatically and unintentionally, right? It's not something that you are conscious of. That's implicit bias, right? Not explicit, but implicit bias. And that bias, conscious, unconscious, intentional, unintentional, automatic, subconscious, it still affects judgments, decisions, behaviors, actions, like all of that. It is still impacted by that bias. We all have implicit biases. We just do. You cannot grow up in a world that is imperfect and not have implicit biases. It is just not possible. Like, you have to start unlearning those things to really tackle your own implicit biases. And if you're not even aware that you have them, you're certainly not doing the work to unlearn them. Let's just give a real world example real quick.
Who would you feel comfortable around? He's really cute. The guy on the right's really cute. The guy on the left is, in addition to having a long, scary beard, he's a Muslim.
What makes her profile these people is the implicit bias that she has, right? She doesn't even realize that, like, the snap judgment comes from certain things that she's thinking about, right? It's why anytime terrorism comes up, we have to worry about our bearded, turban-wearing Sikh brothers, right? Like, things get exponentially difficult for them, right? When we were first talking about this, I was mentioning like the melting pot versus the salad bowl theory, right? And this reminds me of something that you said about equality versus sameness.
A lot of this, especially when I'm talking to Punjabi people, they go, "Oh, Guru Sahib says that everybody is the same. And that's not actually true. Guru Sahib says that everybody is equal. And there's actually there's a difference between equality and sameness. Equality is everybody's on the same level. Nobody's higher or lower than anybody else. Versus sameness would literally mean that everybody lives the same life. Everybody looks the same. Everybody has the same struggles and everything. And that's just not the case.
It's sort of understandable that a lot of times when you think about equality, you might automatically think about sameness. I know even when I was learning about, civil rights and stuff like that in school, and MLK's like sort of dreams for this country, a lot of times it was about sameness, right? We want to make sure everybody has the same thing, but we can get into that later, why even MLK realized, that's not going to work. It's not really about sameness. I think when I was younger, I heard a lot about this melting pot as being like the ideal. When you think about a melting pot, like soup, right? Everything kind of like mixes together and you kind of get this one sort of all similar consistency at the end versus a salad bowl, right? I like this one a lot better because everybody gets to be who they are. Everybody has their place, their purpose, right? And it just, the more difference you have in that salad, the more beautiful the salad is, right? Like you could have a bunch of different kind of green food. You could have just all red. You could do that. But the more you sort of like have diversity in the salad ingredients, the more, the better the salad is to keep it sort of plain and simple, right? And I think
jalapenos make my salad.
Amen.
I don't know about you.
No, I don't really do spicy foods. Well, I wish I could, but that's a whole other situation. But when we talk about equality, we're not talking about sameness, right? And
right.
The fact of the matter is, if we want to get to equality, the way that we get to equality, the way that we get really true equity, which is, I believe, really what Guru was saying and Guru was talking about, not even using those words, but in the current context, I think equity is really the goal here, right? And to get there, we have to acknowledge the differences because we have to be mindful and be aware that everybody's going to need different things to make sure we have this equal playing field, to make sure everybody is treated equally. You need to know about the other person's lived experiences to really understand their perspective better, to understand their life, to understand what their needs are, to be able to meet those needs, to kind of meet them somewhere in the middle, right? And that is really the beautiful thing about Sikhi. That's why I love it so much, is because it does allow room for that. It does allow room for difference. It allows room for us to have different journeys, to do things differently, and then still get to the same place. Even when we talk about religious freedom, right? Like Sikhi is that's another fundamental aspect of Sikhi is religious freedom. And it's the acknowledgement that people are different. People come from different places and thus have different cultures, have different needs, and different lived experiences. And despite all of that, or because of all of that, really, we got to work towards equity. And that's how we're going to get to it.
Even Guru Nanak, when Guru Nanak traveled different places, Guru Nanak changed the way he dressed. Guru Nanak changed the way he spoke and adapted to the way that people, lived in that area to try to get the same message across. So there is no one way to be a Sikh. You can be different and still be a Sikh.
Exactly. There's no one right way to be a Sikh. I think that's really kind of the bottom line. And trying to mesh and make all Sikhs look, behave, think, believe the same thing. That to me is really the opposite of what Guru was striving for. It reminds me of like a teacher. Like you would not teach a high school student history the same way you would teach a kindergartner. You just wouldn't. Like you kind of have to adapt, right? You don't need everybody to be the same and do the same thing. So, and I really think Guru was amazing at that. As we wrap up here, we talked about implicit bias. We've talked about equality versus sameness. I think another issue that we have is this blurring of lines between religion and culture, right? A lot of things I will hear, Sikhs don't do that, or that's not like, Guru wouldn't approve of that, or Sikhs do this, or you can't wear colored turbans. Like your turban shouldn't have any printing on it. It should be solid one color. You shouldn't, like all of these rules. And I'm like, nah, bro, that's culture. That Guru ain't say nothing about that. I don't know what you're talking about, but that's not how that works. And I know because, coming from one religion to another, I didn't want to just be back in the same position. So I did a lot of research, I did a lot of studying, I did a lot of practicing before I decided like this is the one for me, right? And I part of that research, one of the first things I looked up was to see if there were other Black Sikhs, other African American Sikhs, and then to find out if there would be restrictions on what I believe in, what I want to do with my life, the goals that I have for my life, who I am, so forth and so on, right? And some people might not understand, why was it important for you to know if there are other Black Sikhs? Because I'm tired of being the token. I am tired. I was even then and even now, I am tired of being the only in a space. I was thinking about practicing Sikhi to find community, to find fellowship surrounding my beliefs, and I just didn't want to go back to being a token.
If you think you tired of being a token, I'm tired of being a token.
Exactly. That's how we got here, right? We've each of us has sort of been accidentally sort of / unintentionally been like tokenized in some way in our experience with Sikhi. And we are really trying to avoid that. We are not interested in being the token anything. Real quick, let's just cover culture versus religion. There's a blurring of the lines, and you will have some people who don't mind those blurred lines and don't mind sort of assimilating in cultural ways now that they are Sikh, and that is lovely. I am not one of those people. I think I kind of tested the waters a little bit, but I really like the aspects of my culture that I like that help make me who I am. Real quick, just speak on religion versus culture and your experience with that, dealing with Sikhi and not being South Asian or Indian or Punjabi more specifically.
Okay, I'm going to keep it a buck. I'm going to just start by saying Punjabi Sikhs, just because Sikhi started in Punjab does not mean that it's finished in Punjab, doesn't mean that it belongs to Punjab. Guru Nanak literally spent the majority of his life outside of Punjab teaching Sikhi to non-Punjabi people until this day. Because of that, I don't know if you've seen this documentary called Allegory, Tapestry of Guru Nanak's Travels. This guy literally retraced Guru Nanak's footsteps across all of the Udasis, and there are literally people from different regions of the East that have a connection to Guru Nanak, and Punjab has absolutely nothing to do with that connection. So no, I think there's a blurring of the lines there because majority of the Sikhs in India are concentrated in Punjab.
Right. There's a blurring of the lines. And so it is mindful to identify those lines. When we talk about why Black and Sikh, a lot of it has to do with the fact that our experience as a Sikh is different than that of somebody who is South Asian, born into a Sikh family, been Sikh all their lives, raised around other Sikh people. So if we really are striving for equality, right, which I think is the goal, it's important to recognize those differences. It is important to recognize that my lived experience as a Sikh is different than yours as a South Asian person. It's even different than Soorma's as another Black Sikh. Like, even our lived experiences are different. It's really time to talk about it. And then I just kind of want to like wrap up with actually something you said when we were preparing for this. There is room for cultural difference in Sikhi. You can hold on to your culture and cultural values and practice Sikhi. You can let go of some aspects of culture and practice Sikhi. Not only is there room for cultural difference, but embracing those differences is an absolute must. You can't have people of different cultures practicing this faith and have no concern for how those differences impact their lived experience with Sikhi. That's just diversity without inclusion. And diversity without inclusion is tokenism. And we're not here for tokenism. Now, like the last part I just added on. We'll talk more about tokenism. We don't want to keep you here too long. But that's the gist. That's why this project, Black and Sikh, was so important to us, why it's been like a couple years in the making now, why we've been talking about it, and why we're here, and what we plan to do with this project, this channel, this space, this platform. We do appreciate you joining us here. We appreciate the support. If you want to know how you can support us more, if you want to know how you can help make this happen, look in the comment section, look in the description box. There'll be some ways to do that, or reach out to us. All of our social medias are the same, at BlackXSikh. Again, my name is Smalls. You can call me Smalls. My pronouns are she and her, and I'm here in SoCal or on Tongva land and Chumash land. Soorma, you want to sign us out?
Yeah, thanks for joining us. I'm Soorma, Soorma, pronouns he, him. I'm joining you from Kawankoa land, aka Galveston, Texas, that island. Thanks so much for being with us. Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh.